Good afternoon, everyone. If you can't hear me, just let me know, okay? I'll speak up. All right, so today the talk is North America's Blue Zone, can you live to 100 in America? Okay, before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. So as you know, this is an educational presentation, so it's not to give you medical advice, so don't apply any of these things until you speak with your healthcare provider. As well, I just want to report I don't have any conflicts of interest. I'm not associated with any supplement company or any other commercial interests, all right? All right, North America's Blue Zone, can you live to 100 in America? If you could live to 100, what are some of the things that you would like to accomplish in your life? You're guaranteed to live to 100. What are some of the things that you would like to accomplish? Maybe you have like one or two people kind of just share. It seems like you want.
I really haven't given it much thought, but get to see great-grandchildren.
Ah, great. Okay. We meet somebody who met their great-grandchild. All right, one other person. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to have still a good mind to make good judgments.
Still a good mind to make good judgments. All right. Well, Dan Buettner, he's a research fellow with the National Geographic. Him and his team, they got a grant to go around the world and search for geographic areas where there's a large percentage of centenarians. Now, when I say centenarians, do you know what I'm talking about? People that live to 100, okay? So him and his team, they went out in search of these centenarians, and they found 5 geographic locations. Okay, one of them was in North America, which we'll save for a little bit later. Does anyone take a guess around the world 4 geographic locations where there's a large proportion of centenarians?
Japan.
Yes, sir?
Okinawa?
Okinawa, Japan. Okay, that's one of them.
Bhutan.
Another one.
Bhutan.
Sorry?
Bhutan.
Bhutan.
Place.
Yes, that's not one of the ones they found. Somewhere in the Mediterranean. All right, let's be more specific. Any other guesses? Maybe one more guess. Nepal? No. No. Not Jamaica. Okinawa, Japan. Nicoya, Nicaragua. Sardinia, Italy. And Icaria, Greece. Okay? Okinawa, Sardinia, Icaria, Greece. And Nicoya, Nicaragua. All right? And in fact, they call them blue zones because in their research lab or wherever they're staying, they had this big map and they start to draw blue circles around these places, so they just call them blue zones. Okay, so that's just all it is, all right? When Dan Buettner went to Okinawa, he met this individual. Her name is Gozai Shinzato. And this person, as he was going up to visit her house, she was pulling weeds with a hoe, with a hoe. Then after she was done that, she went on her knees, started pulling the weeds out with her hands. Very healthy individual at the age of over 90. All right? The Okinawans, they eat sweet potatoes, bitter melon, tofu, very whole foods, very plant-based diets. All right? Gozai Shinzato. In Icaria, Greece, he met somebody named Stomaitis Moriadis, and this is one of my favorite ones. This guy's story is very interesting. At a young age, he moved from Icaria, Greece to Detroit, Michigan. There, at the age of 66, he got lung cancer. And the doctors told him that you only have a few months to live, basically like prepare to die. This man, he wouldn't settle for that. He went back to Icaria, Greece. And he outlived his cancer 37 years later. Okay? And he's 102. His diagnosis was when he was 66. This is a picture of him at 102 years old. There, when he went back home, he was eating the traditional Icarian food, getting away from all the junk American food. He was walking up and down the hills of Greece, breathing the fresh air, and his cancer went away. In fact, when Dan Buettner asked him what happened, all he said was, "I just simply forgot to die." Yeah. And the interesting thing is, he went back to America to get tested for his lung cancer. And so Dan Buettner called him and said, So what were the results? He says, I don't know, because all my doctors are dead. True story, all right? So he had outlived the very doctors who had told him that he was going to die. Okay, Icaria, Greece. All right, in Sardinia, Italy, he met an individual named Tonino Tola. This is 75 years old. At 75, he's still able to carry 2 sheep under both arms. He's still cutting wood, chopping stuff, living very healthy life. He's a shepherd. And then Nicoya, Nicaragua. This individual, she's over 100 years old, and when Dan Buno was going up to meet her, she was using a machete, and the jungle brush was getting invading her house, so she was chopping up the jungle brush with a machete. How many 100-year-olds do you know use a machete and chops that? When Dan Buno was interviewing her, she got tired of like his interview, so she went and just showed him the kitchen. In the kitchen, in the fridge, all there was cheese and tomatoes. No processed food, nothing. In the cupboard, there was only bags of rice, onion, potatoes, things like that. Very simple. And when she was preparing food for Dan and his team, she made the dough with her own hands, made the tortillas, rolled it out with her own hands, everything with her own hands. Home cooked, whole foods, mostly plant-based diets. Is it making sense? All right. When Dan Buhner, when he was researching these individuals, these different groups, he noticed that there's some common features amongst these groups. Do you want to take a guess? What are some of the common features among these people who live to 100?
They're moving all the time.
That's right. Interesting, he notes that not only are they exercising, but usually their exercise is built into their into their daily life. Yeah. So they're not going to like the gym and pumping weights, right? Even though we're not against that, right? But their physical activity is built into their life. So when you're in Sardinia, Italy, you're walking the hills. Same with Greece. The shepherds are walking the hills every day. They tend gardens. A lot of them, they garden. Things like that. Okay, so that's a really good one. What's another one? Let's take a few more. Plant-based diets. In fact, these people, they eat meat usually only once per week, at most, sometimes even just once per month, sometimes even just only on special occasions. Okay, very plant-based diets. And on top of that, they eat very whole foods. They cook the meals by themselves. Okay, another one. Fresh air, yes, that's right. Okay, yeah, okay. This one here, that's really good. They have very strong social networks. So these are women in Okinawa. This is called a moai. So when you're in Okinawa, you're part of a moai, which means it's like a little support group. Okay, these people, their average age is 102. They've been friends together for 97 years. Okay, that means that from the age of 5, these women were together. Almost daily, they gather together in the evening to sip tea, gossip, and talk about different things and support each other. Okay? He asked one of the ladies, says, what's the very first thing you do in the morning? She says that she gets up, she opens the window, and makes sure that her friend's window is open as well. So she knows that she is still alive. So what you find is that in these cultures, they're very socially, they stay socially bonded. In Sardinia, unlike here in North America where your social capital decreases when you get older, right? In Sardinia, your social capital increases. Your elders are highly respected. They stay close to the family. Okay? Whereas here in North America, we isolate our elders. We put them into nursing homes. We do all this other kind of stuff. And that deteriorates them very quickly. Okay? But in these cultures, the elders stay very close to the family. It's good for the grandkids. And it's also good for the elders as well. All right. But the question is, how about in North America? Right? How about in North America? Because, you don't have McDonald's on every corner in Korea, Greece. Yes? Most of us don't own gardens, things like that. Okay? So the question is, can we, here in North America, live to 100, be a centenarian in North America? And the answer is an absolute yes, okay? They found a blue zone in North America. Does anyone want to take a guess where that blue zone is?
Somebody said
Iceland. It's too cold. No.
in the Arctic or something? Like one of the...
Not Arctic, no. Florida, not Florida. California, where in California? No, we already got Italy. This is North America. Loma Linda, California. Okay. Dan Buettner, he was looking for, he's like, is there a North American blue zone? And he went to like the Minnesota, these other places, didn't find them, but he found them in Loma Linda, California. Very interesting, this is not an ethnic group, this is actually a religious group. Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. Okay? Seventh-day Adventists are a conservative Christian group. They do typical things that other Christians do, charity work, set up schools, set up hospitals, and things like that. But they have very particular lifestyle patterns that separate them from the rest of from other Christians. All right. When Dan Buettner went to Loma Linda, he met someone like this. This is Ellsworth Wareham. He's over 100 years old, and as he was visiting him, he went up the hill to visit his home. And this man, he's 100 years old. He was making a fence all by himself at 100 years old with his own hands. And then he was still doing heart surgery in the 90s. Okay, in the 90s, he was still doing open heart surgery. Very healthy, very vibrant individuals in Loma Linda, California. And these people, the men live about 7 years longer than their Californian counterparts. The women live about 4 years longer than their Californian counterparts. In fact, the Adventists in Loma Linda live longer than the Japanese. Now, usually the Japanese are considered the longest living people, yes? When you say like who lives longest, usually people say Japanese are Japanese. What they're finding is that actually the Californian Adventists live longer than even the Japanese, okay? So you can see the yellow bars are the Japanese, the yellow men, the Japanese men and Japanese women. The blue bars are the Adventists. They're living longer than even the Japanese. And just to give you perspective, this is the average lifespan of the typical Canadian. Okay, so we're pretty behind, yes? Okay. Here in this quotation, the researchers, they say, in conclusion, California Adventists live longer than other Californians, and indeed longer than most, if not all, other formally described populations. Japanese individuals have often been described as the longest lived population, but they do not survive as long as California Adventists. All right? In fact, when Dan Buettner, he was writing a book, he said, I'm writing my second book, and what do you want to tell these people? He says, tell them I still feel like I'm 20. Okay? Now, of course, he's probably exaggerating, but the point is, these people are very healthy, very vibrant, very sharp. Okay? Their minds are sharp. They're doing very well. All right? And Dan Buettner, in his book, and you can get this book, I highly recommend the book. It's called The Blue Zones Solution. This is his second book. He talks about these different groups. He makes a very interesting observation. He says, think about this for a moment. These are Americans. They live among us, drive by the same fast food restaurants, shop in the same grocery stores, breathe the same air, and work in the same jobs we do. But they're living up to a decade longer than the rest of us. You see that? Okay, so these people, it's not like they're like isolated somewhere and like they're living as like hermits and things like that. No, they're living in society like us, but they're living longer and living healthier than many of us. So the question is, how? How do these Seventh-day Adventists do what they do? Does anyone want to take hazard a guess? Yes, sir.
Whole food, plant-based, very little refined foods, vegetable oil, lots of exercise, and a lot of intermittent fasting. Maybe full day fasting.
Yes, you hit on almost everything, yes. Whole foods, plant-based diet, yes. Less more cooking at home. What else do you think? Social aspects. Okay, I'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. Let's talk about diet. Okay, the diet is the big thing amongst these people. This is a breakdown of the typical diet of the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda. I want to ask you, what are some observations that you recognize here? What are some of the observations that you have here? Fruit, you notice this here? Fruits and vegetables. More than half of the diet is fruits and vegetables. For most North Americans, what is a big portion of their diet? Meat or carbs. Yes, meat or carbs. If you look here, the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, they're eating high percentage of vegetables and fruits in their diet. And if you look here, grains only 7% of their diet. Okay. What else do you notice here? Sorry? Yes, meat products are very low in the diet of these Seventh-day Adventists. Okay. You notice here, added sugar is 1%, added fats 2%. What does that mean? They're eating less processed food than most of us. Because usually refined sugars and added fats, usually you get them from processed food. All right? So these people are eating very high plant-based diets, low meat, low animal products. Okay? So first thing we can learn from Seventh-day Adventists that we can apply to ourselves is eat plant-based. Okay? Eat plant-based. If you look at Seventh-day Adventists, 28% of the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda are lacto-ovo vegetarians. 28%. And just to give you a perspective, only 8% of Americans are vegetarian. Okay? 8% of Adventists are vegan. Okay, so you have a high percentage of Adventists who eat very plant-based. All right? And very interesting, the plant-based Adventists live longer than other Adventists who are not plant-based. Okay? So you look here. These are the Japanese. So I put this here just to compare the Japanese. These are non-vegetarian Adventists, and then these are vegetarian Adventists. Do you see that? Okay? So the Adventists live longer than Japanese, but if you're plant-based Adventists, you're living even longer than your own counterparts. Do you see that? Okay? Okay. Why is a plant-based diet so important? First, let's talk about weight. When they study these Seventh-day Adventists, and by the way, the next few graphs I'm going to show you, they're all studies done on Seventh-day Adventists. Okay? When they look at Seventh-day Adventists, the more plant-based you are, the lower your weight is on average. Do you guys see that? Okay, so this is non-vegetarians. Okay, by the way, this is BMI. Okay, the lower the BMI, typically the better. Okay, non-vegetarians, semi-vegetarians, pesco-vegetarians. What's a pesco-vegetarian? Yeah, they eat fish and chicken, right? Okay. Semi, non-semi, pesco, lacto-ovo. What's a lacto-ovo? Milk and eggs, okay? Then vegans, completely plant-based. The average weight goes down the more plant-based you become. And very interesting, if you see here, the green bar, under 25 is considered healthy, normal BMI. On average, only the vegan Adventists were within the healthy BMI range. This is why I put everything else in red and put this in green, okay? Now, it's not saying that if you eat meat that you're automatically going to be overweight. That's not what I'm saying. It's that when they studied this population group, which consists of over 100,000 individuals, on average, they found that only the vegans were within the healthy BMI range. Are you seeing that? Yeah? Okay. The more greener the diet, the more preventative it is. So if you look here, yellow are the vegetarians, lacto-ovo vegetarians, and the vegans. This is for hypertension. If you're vegetarian, you have 55% lower risk of getting hypertension. Okay? Same with lacto-ovo. But if you become vegan, there's a 75% lower risk of getting hypertension compared to non-vegetarians. Do you see that? Okay? Same with diabetes. Okay? If you're vegetarian, you have 49% lower risk of getting diabetes. If you're lacto-ovo, 61%. But if you're vegan, 78% lower risk of getting diabetes, type 2 diabetes, if you are vegan. Do you see that? So the more plant-based you are, the lower your risk of getting a lot of these metabolic diseases, all right? Same with cancer. Vegetarians have lower risks of cancer, half the risk of colon cancer compared to non-vegetarians. 35% lower risk of prostate cancer compared to non-vegetarians, all right? Same with heart disease. The vegans, 55% lower risk of ischemic heart disease, all right? Cardiovascular disease, 42% compared to lacto-ovo and pescatarians, okay? And so on, cancer, and so on. In fact, if you look here, the pesco-vegetarians had 10% increased risk of cancer compared to non-vegetarians, right? So the point is, the more plant-based you are, at least when they studied the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, generally the lower the risk of chronic diseases. Is everyone still with me? Yes? Okay. Now I want to ask you, clearly then, there's something about eating meat that is not so great. Yes? Or why? Okay. So let's ask the question, so why? Well, what is it about meat?
Well, humans are actually not designed to eat meat.
Okay, why do you say that, sir?
Well, if I showed you a cow, you wouldn't be able to eat it. You have to go and kill it, skin it, and then cook it, and then season it.
Yeah.
Real meat eaters will go right up to it and take a chunk of it. I still like pepperoni on my pizza, so
So are you a vegetarian?
yeah, no.
Oh, no, you're not a vegetarian.
I eat everything.
Okay. But you know your stuff, yeah. All right, well, yeah, so humans aren't designed to eat meat. If you look at the digestive tract of humans, it's actually very different from what a typical meat-eating like animals are. It's very different. Yeah, so that's a good one. What are some other reasons why? Yes, ma'am? Okay, yeah, the hormones in the animals, all right, yes. What else? Our intestines are too long, that's right, yes. It's designed for plant-based, digesting plant foods, that's right, yes. Scientists, as they study these Seventh-day Adventists, they came up with a few reasons of why they think that them staying away from meat is actually health promoting, okay? Saturated fat, meat protein, heme iron, cooking methods, and antibiotics, okay? Let's take a look at a few of them. Cooking meat protein promotes mutagen formation, okay? So let's look at this. If you bake, grill, and fry meat, right? The creatine in the meat reacts with amino acids, the proteins and stuff in the meat, and then that creates mutagens. You might have heard of heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are pretty much mutation-forming compounds. They damage the DNA and then they cause mutations, which can lead to cancer, all right? So just when you're baking, when you're cooking and grilling meat, this is what happens. Now I want to ask you, does the same thing happen when you grill vegetables? Why? There's no blood dripping. Vegetables are not high in creatine. Okay, if you know creatine supplements for muscles and stuff like that. Okay, vegetables are like 0 in creatine. Okay, this is why when you grill, like your peppers and stuff like that on the grill, right, you don't get the same mutagenic effects. Okay, it is the creatine that's reacting with these different amino acids that's leading to these mutation formation. Okay, so this is why when you're grilling vegetables is different from when you're grilling and frying meat. You understand? Okay, all right. Moving on here. How about chicken? Grilled or fried chicken actually contains higher levels of heterocyclic amines than does beef meat. Okay, so if people say, oh, I'm going to go pescatarian. Well, you're really not off the hook, okay? Nitrites in meats, in processed meat, also promotes mutations in the DNA, okay? Heme iron. Okay, do you know what I mean by heme iron? No? Okay. So there's 2 types of iron, okay? There's heme iron and then there's non-heme iron, okay? There are 2 different types of iron. Non-heme iron is the iron that you get from plant foods, like if you eat spinach, you've heard spinach is high in iron, right? Well, that has non-heme iron, okay? Animal foods are high in heme iron, okay? That's why they're red, okay? The heme makes the meat red, okay? Thing with heme iron is that heme iron is pro-oxidant, okay? You've heard of antioxidant, right? This is the opposite, okay? These things, they promote oxidation, which leads to free radical formation, which then these things damage your cells, okay? Antioxidants, on the other hand, they donate electrons and stabilize oxidation, free radicals, okay? Well, the problem with heme iron is that they promote oxidation, which then promotes free radical formation, which then promotes inflammation, okay? So this is why when people eat meat, they're intaking a lot of heme iron, which is not good for you. Understood? Okay? This is very different from the iron that you get from plant foods, which is non-heme iron. Okay? And atherosclerosis. What does atherosclerosis lead to? Hardening of the arteries, narrowing of the arteries, plaque formation. Okay. Meat contains something called trimethylamine and oxides, which is known to promote atherosclerosis. So lecithin, choline, these things are in meat. The gut bacteria, so in your gut you have a lot of bacteria. They metabolize these things, promote trimethylamines, which then gets processed into trimethylamine and oxides, which then they accelerates atherosclerosis. This is why meat eating is connected with the hardening and narrowing of your arteries. And when people go on a plant-based diet, they're actually able to reopen these arteries. Okay? Are you still with me? Okay, so this is why going plant-based is extremely important, cutting out the meat from the diet, and this is why the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California are living very long and healthy lives. They're eating plant-based, avoiding lots of things that come with eating meat. All right. Remember we saw that graph? Loma Linda, Californians, Adventists, they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? In fact, here, if you look here, they did study on Seventh-day Adventists. The tall green bars are vegans, okay? Berries and other fruits. If you look here, the more plant-based you go, your tendency to eat more fruit, your fruit and vegetable intake increases a lot. You see that? Okay? So 55% higher, 75% higher than the non-vegetarians as compared to lacto-ovo, pescatarians, and semi-vegetarians. And the same thing with vegetable intake. The more vegan you plan to become, your intake of fruits and vegetables increases a lot. Why are fruits and vegetables healthy for you? Antioxidants, that's right. Okay, they stabilize free radicals. What else? Yes, they're high in vitamins, minerals, and things like that. All right. What else? No saturated fats. That's right. Okay. They're low in calories, high on nutrients, and phytochemicals. Phytochemicals act as antioxidants. All right. So you want to be eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Complex carbs are okay. If you look at Seventh-day Adventists, they don't take away carbs from their diet. Now, how many of you have heard that carbs are bad for you? Okay, yeah. There's this saying nowadays that they say carbs are bad. Okay, but if you look at the diets of not only Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, but if you look at Okinawans, Sardinians, the people from Nicoya, Nicaragua, they eat a lot of carbs in their diet. In fact, the Okinawans, 80% of their diet is rice, is carbs, complex carbs, rice and beans. Okay.
And it's white rice too.
I don't know what that was.
Like regular white, it's not brown rice. It's just regular white rice.
I think it's whole grain rice, but I'm not sure though. Yeah, I'm not sure. All right. So this idea that you have to cut out carbs from your diet is absolutely false. Okay. But the type of carbs is important. Okay. Most of North Americans, we consume refined, simple carbohydrates. Okay. What are examples of refined, simple carbohydrates? White rice. Okay, let me give you examples. A croissant, what kind of carb is that? Simple or complex? Simple, right. Okay, how about Muffins. I guess it depends on what kind of muffin, right? If it's a whole grain muffin, okay? Right. But whole grain bread, brown rice, these are complex carbohydrates. Beans, complex carbohydrates, okay? You want to be eating a lot of these types of things, okay? Why are complex carbohydrates beneficial to you, besides they have nutrients and minerals and stuff like that? There's one key ingredient in these carbohydrates that make it really, really health promoting. Fiber. Does everyone know what I mean by fiber? Yes? Complex carbohydrates are very high in fiber, and why is fiber important for you? Sorry? Besides, it gets your bowels going. That's obviously the obvious one, yeah. A scrubber for your intestines, okay, that's important. In your GI tract, right, you have trillions of bacteria, yes? It's called your gut microbiota. In fact, you have more bacteria in your gut than all your cells combined, okay? In fact, you have more DNA in your gut bacteria than all your DNA in the rest of your body, okay? The thing is that these gut microbiota, they metabolize and feed on fiber, okay, the good bacteria. The bad bacteria, if you're eating simple sugars, meat and things like that, they thrive on these things. So when you're eating high fiber foods, you're promoting the growth of the good bacteria in your gut. Is this making sense, right? And they find that if you have a healthy gut microbiota, it helps with your mood. So there's the gut-brain connection. It helps with inflammation and immune system. It regulates the immune system. This is why when people have autoimmune diseases, right, you have to fix the gut first. Okay, skin conditions, you have to fix the gut. Okay, and things like that. Even weight, obesity, they're connecting with the gut microbiota. Okay, so these little creatures in here, extremely important. And if you give them fiber, you promote the growth of the good bacteria. Sugar, refined sugar, meat, and things like that promote the growth of the not so good ones. Okay? So this is why complex carbohydrates are very important. And I just want to show you this one here. Okay? Yeah, so these are the men and women. Okay? The intakes of fiber, you can see it's much greater than the other groups, so non-vegetarians, semi-vegetarians, pesco-vegetarians, lacto-ovo-vegetarians. But if you're vegan, among vegan Adventists, their fiber intake is sky high. You see that? Okay? So this is like the minimum requirement. So for men, the minimum requirement is 38 grams per day. For women, it's 25 grams. Okay? If you look at the other types of diets, they don't meet the minimum requirements, at least for men, okay, on average. But the vegans, they're way above the minimum recommended fiber intake. Okay? So the more plant-based you go, the higher your fiber intake. Okay? Now very quickly, nuts. How many of you have heard that nuts make you fat? You've heard that before. They say if I want to lose weight, I have to, right? That's actually, there's zero evidence to suggest that nuts actually make you fat. Zero. Peanuts? Generally, nut intake is generally good for you. Okay? And you'll be hard-pressed to find a study that says that nuts themselves actually make you fat. They are high in calories, they're energy dense, but they find that those who eat them are not overweight. Okay? So nuts, in fact, are connected with lower risk of heart disease among Seventh-day Adventists. And I want to hit on something here. People say that if you go plant-based, that you'll become protein deficient. How many of you have heard this before? It's like, well, where are you going to get your protein from, right? Okay, so if you look here, this is a study on Seventh-day Adventists, and this is protein intake, okay? Non-vegetarians, semi-vegetarians, pesco-vegetarians, lacto-ovo-vegetarians, and vegans. As you can see, the vegans, their protein intake is still similar to that of lacto-ovo-vegetarians, semi-vegetarians, and so forth, okay? And if you compare them to the requirements that are needed for your weight. Even if you're vegan, you easily meet the daily requirements that you need based on your weight. So for instance, if you're a 120-pound individual, this is the minimum amount of protein that you need in a day. You see that? Okay. If you're vegan, you're way above this amount. Do you guys understand? Okay. If you're 140 pounds, this is the minimum protein intake that you need. Vegans eat enough. Okay. If you're 160 pounds, 180 pounds, you're still enough. Okay. Once you get 200, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like you're stretching it. Okay. But the point.
What's the consumption by weight that a normal vegan needs to consume a day?
It's 0.8 grams, 0.8 grams per kilogram. Yeah, that's a rough estimate. Yeah. Okay. Vegetarians, including vegan diets, typically meet or exceed recommended protein intakes when caloric intakes are adequate. This means what is basically this saying is that if you're eating enough calories, even on a vegan diet, you're going to be getting enough protein. Okay, this is from the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, one of the leading organizations and scientific bodies for nutrition research in America. Their position paper says, even if you're vegan, you're going to get enough protein. All right? Okay. So in conclusion, I want to encourage everyone to go as much plant-based as you can. In fact, it's better to start earlier. Okay? So for instance, in this study among Seventh-day Adventists, those who were vegetarian for 17 years, for greater than 17 years, they lived 3.6 years longer than those who were vegetarian for less than that. Do you guys understand? Okay, so for those who were vegetarian for at least 17 years, they had 3.6 added years compared to those who were only vegetarian for a shorter amount of time. All right, so I want to encourage you all to go plant-based. Okay, and very quickly, closing off here, the other aspects that Dan Buhner recognized about Seventh-day Adventists that they, of course, as a religious group, they stay very socially connected. They tap into their spirituality. So, they go to church on Saturday. They have a spiritual community. They engage in things like Sabbath walks. They have a sanctuary in time called the Sabbath, which is 1 day a week where they don't do homework, they don't do work, they don't do study. They just kind of go to church, fellowship with their family and their friends, church family members. And Dan Buhner recognized that this is also another very important part of promoting their health. Okay, so in closing, living to a healthy 100, is it possible? I believe the answer is an absolute yes. And the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California are proving to the rest of us in North America that you can live to 100 and not live those years debilitated with disease and things like that, but you can actually be very healthy and vibrant, so much so that you can be doing heart surgery at the age of 90, building fences with your own hands at the age of 100. These people are living very long, very healthy lives. So I believe that if we follow some of these very simple principles, that we can live to a healthy 100. At least it's possible. You're giving yourself the chance to do that. All right? All right. Any questions? Yes.
I was wondering about the GMO foods and
Yes.
how that affects what's in them.
With GMO foods, I think it's better to eat organic, but I think it's still better to eat your fruits and vegetables even if it's not organic. Okay, so I think there's studies, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a study that says like eating fruits and vegetables, even if it's GMO, that's bad for you. Okay, fruits and vegetables in general are good for you. Okay, so I encourage people to still eat fruits and vegetables even if you can't get organic. If you can get organic, of course, go ahead, right? Get organic. But if it's not financially feasible, it's still better to eat fruits and vegetables. Yeah. Edwin and then the lady.
My friend was 16 years old when she cut off meat, but she started to have cramps when she was having her menstruation. so she got back to me because she just couldn't bear. Can you comment on that? Like,
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
so my friend, she cut off her meat diet, and the effect was when she had menstruation cycle, she had severe cramps. But it wasn't happening before, right? Like, so can you comment on those things, like the effects of like, such a change like that? Like, is it okay to just change like that?
Yeah. Usually menstrual symptoms actually improve when you go on a plant-based diet. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but and did she get better when she went back on the meat?
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to comment. Yeah.
Maybe the question is, would you give any precaution if someone wanted to try and transition into a plant-based diet? Anything that we should be aware of, or any precaution that you could give?
Right. Okay. So any precautions? Well, there are certain vitamins that may be lacking if you don't do vegan, vegetarian diets right. The big one is vitamin B12. Okay, and another one could be iron. Okay, iron. Now the thing is, even if you're vegan, you don't necessarily need to worry about iron as much. Okay, it's false that you automatically be low in iron. However, you do have to be conscious about eating like iron-rich foods. Okay, but the thing is that there's nothing to suggest that you can't cut your meat immediately and go vegan. Right? I've had patients who do that and they do really well, right? So, but you do have to be careful of certain nutrients like vitamin B12, iron, and things like that. Okay, so make sure that you're eating enough of these. It might be good to get a blood test every once in a while to make sure that your levels are within normal, things like that. Yeah.
Is there such a thing as an unhealthy vegan? The reason I'm asking is because I have a friend who she became vegan, first vegetarian, then she went vegan, and she's like 40 pounds overweight back, not muscle.
Right. I mean, like, so the term that I like to use and the term that a lot of people like to use is whole foods, plant-based. Okay, and the reason is because like Coca-Cola is vegan, right? It's true. Coca-Cola is vegan. Oreo cookies are vegan. You got a lot of foods that are vegan that aren't healthy, right? So what we like to say is whole foods, plant-based. Whole foods means you get the vegetables and stuff from the grocery store, you bring it to your home, and you cook it yourself. That's whole foods, right? And plant-based means not animal foods, right? If we become vegan, but we're eating like pre-made waffles, oatmeal that's quick, those quick oatmeal that has like lots of sugar in it, things like croissants, go to Tim Hortons, buy donuts, whatever. These are all vegan foods, but clearly they're not very healthy for you, right? So we say whole foods, plant-based, right? And just because you're vegan doesn't mean that you should just be eating whatever you want, how much you want, right? You still have to be, manage how much you eat and things like that. So just because you're vegan doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll be within a normal weight. You still have to do vegan diets, right? Yeah. I think you have a follow-up question though.
No, my question
No.
was,
Okay. Yeah.
regarding what Evan was talking about earlier. Does she still eat cheese and milk and stuff?
Well, she was just thinking it's the iron. Because the cramp, she was thinking like lack of iron, that's why for the cramp. So I don't know if that correlates. That's why I asked that question.
The reason I'm asking is I used to be one of the sufferers of a menstrual cramp. I mean, real suffering. The whole projectile, everything. And once I cut out that, after looking at a doctor who was on the Oprah show talking about how Neil Bernard is his name.
Neil Bernard, yeah.
Your foods can actually heal you.
Yeah.
And cut out certain things to prove it. And I have been 17 years free of menstrual cramp. And so if she's still on that, probably you could advise her to try that and see if it will work.
Yeah. I mean, because like with menstrual cramps, there's a lot of different things that might cause it. So it's hard for me to kind of like sit here and try to dissect, what is wrong, right? So it could be hormonal issues, where they have to test your hormones, things like that. So, yeah. Yes, ma'am. And then we'll go there. Yeah.
I still struggle with, I even with cramps. I still struggle with, I kind of like just go straight into people and say, that's me, right? I don't want to have this craving coming on. I think it has a lot to do with your mindset. If you keep in mind that this is what I want and I'm not going to go back, that's fear, right? But if I decide to go out, someone else say, you know what, I'm just going to stop it. No, and then when I go out and it's kind of like, why? You know what I mean? I'm going to have a little taste of it. It's not going to work, right? So for me, it's a mental thing, you know. If this is going to help you, whatever way, slowly I come off of it, but to do like some people does, like, you know, right away, like, right away to change. I can't do that. Like people have family and friends and stuff, and they have a big table. I mean, you don't want to disappoint sometimes. It might sound funny, right? But sometimes you go places, some people, especially Italians, you go to Italian table, they will be mad at you if you don't take part in certain things. I mean, a little bit to take, you know, not even wrong with that, right? But too much.
Yeah. For sure, you know. Actually, you know, you guys remember that this man, right, Ellsworth Wareham, you know, he's vegan, but he says, you know, something to get he says something to get like a desire for salmon, so I'll go down and get salmon, right? But the thing is, the point is like, what's the general pattern of your lifestyle? You know, we're not talking about like once a year where you're gonna have like turkey, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking what your day-to-day diet. What is the general pattern of your diet? And what's proven by these Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, is that the more plant-based you are, the healthier you are, right? So, you know, like don't guilt trip yourself because you're like, you know, whatever. But like, we want to be going to a direction where we become vegan, you know. But you shouldn't be like, guilty because you do this or that. Like, but you know, you want to give yourself the best chance. Well, yeah. All right.
My question is, what do you recommend to start to get into the idea to, you know, develop this the diet?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Neil Barnard. So the question was, you know, how do you get started, right? I'm not a vegan. How do you get started? Dr. Neil Barnard, he recommends this strategy. He says, for a few weeks or a week or so, a few weeks, he says, don't try to become vegan, but start taste testing of vegan options. So just start incorporating more vegan foods into your diet, and do that for a few weeks, and then try to go vegan. He says usually after you do that for a few weeks, it actually becomes very easy to just go plant-based, because you start to crowd out all the other stuff from your diet.
So just to give an idea, so if I don't eat a lot of salad, for example, so you know, my dinner time, so I start to get, you know, a plate of salad. That would be kind of a good start.
That's right. So it's like, instead of focusing on what you're going to take out of your diet, focus on what you're going to put into your diet, right? So that's what you do. So you start putting vegan options into your diet, and you start realizing this is not so bad after all. You go to the taco store or whatever, and you say, okay, instead of getting the chicken taco, I'm going to just get like a bean burrito. So you just start switching a little bit here and there, and you recognize that it's not as bad as you thought it was, and then it becomes easier for people to actually make that switch completely. So I think the lady here, then the man. Okay, then here after, yeah. Nightshade vegetables, okay. Yeah, so what have you heard about them? Yeah, okay. So, right. So does everyone know what we mean by nightshade vegetables? You know, like the tomatoes and things like that. Okay, so there is some truth to that. Most people are okay with nightshades, but it is true. When some people have certain inflammatory conditions, nightshades are sometimes they do promote that, right? One way to test that is something called an elimination diet, where you eliminate something for 6 weeks. So if you want to test nightshades, or if you want to test gluten or whatever, right? You eliminate that for 6 weeks. Then after that, you start to slowly put it back into your diet, and you see if you improve or if you get worse. Okay, so nightshades in general are okay, but for certain people, it might not be the greatest. And the way to test that is to use an elimination diet. 6 weeks off, add them back in slowly, one at a time, and see how you react. Yeah. So there's some truth to that, but not as a general rule. I think the gentleman, was it? And then we'll go here. Yeah.
I was just going to make a comment as far as going to any sort of diet. There isn't a thing on the face of this earth that doesn't taste good seasoned right. You can change your diet just by doing that. I don't know if there's any seasonings or herbs or anything we really should avoid.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. This lady here.
Any documented statistics of vegan cooked versus vegan raw, RAW?
Cool. That's a really interesting question.
Brian Clements at the Hippocrates Center promotes when everything fails in the allopathic medicine. That's where people come, and he says their conditions are reversed.
Right. So that's a great question. The question was, are there any studies between vegan cooked versus vegan raw? And I personally, I'm not aware of any studies between comparing those two things. So it's hard for me to comment. My guess would be that both of them are still good for you. Okay, so that's my guess. But I can't say which is better based on the science. I'm not aware of any science.